We've been building a 1960s inspired vintage supercar off of a $500 Porsche Boxster that we saved from the junkyard. The front end of the car is already done in aluminum tubing and halfway there with the skin. Now we're on the rear end. This tubing is very important because it is the structure that we're going to use to base the aluminum skin off of. So it needs to be correct.
It's also helping to define the shape of the back end. Because it's defining the shape, it has to be right in every aspect. As we came back to it, we found that this is sagging. When we put it in our jig, we only tacked at the bottom. When we did the front, we welded much farther around, and it turns out we were right the first time. So we're gonna put it back in the jig, get this all lined up, do some more welding, and then we're gonna come back and add even more tubing to lock everything into place.
That extra tubing is very important because, like right here, for example, we have a grid. Inside this grid, this shape could go any which way whatsoever. So we need additional tubing to define like this valley that runs through here. And there's another valley that runs here. There's a peak that runs through there, but you can't see that without the tubing. So we gotta make it. Luckily, we thought ahead a little bit and did a 1/6 scale clay model a while back of our rough design. So we'll be able to use this to reference the tubing we need to make. But first, let's fix that sag. We just had it, I think what happened was we transferred it back over there and it moved because we have 3 points holding this rear hoop on and they're in a straight line. There's nothing triangulating about it. So it just went, gravity took its toll.
When I grab this and move it, you can feel the weld just bending because it's just one tack. It needs support up the sides.
If there's anything that I learned with this project, it's that I don't know aluminum welding very well. I do steel just about every day. In the past 8 years I've welded steel, but not aluminum at all. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we're almost out of safety wire. We gotta order some more.
I feel like that tube of safety wire has gotta be at least 20 years old. I'm the reason we can't nice things. When the first time that Tony showed me safety wire pliers like this, it blew my mind. I didn't know they existed.
So Ryan got these tubes tied into the templates here, at least the first two. The last one we haven't because we've got a little bit of a gap. We've got some bending to do, which it'll bend real easily, but we got to bend this back down and tie it in. But this is why we came back and did what we're doing. Yeah, so that was that easy.
This video has been paid for and sponsored by Keeps. Whether you're looking to prevent hair loss, stimulate hair growth, or just take care of the hair you have, Keeps has you covered. Male pattern baldness is a genetic condition that will affect 2 out of every 3 guys by the time that they are 35. And most Keeps men notice results within 6 months of starting treatment. Keeps also has over 5,000 5-star reviews. And over the last 6 years, Keeps has treated over 1 million men experiencing hair loss with only science-backed ingredients. They deliver treatments directly to your door in discreet, non-branded packaging. Big thanks to Keeps for sponsoring this video and for the free product. Hair loss stops with Keeps. For a special offer to get started, go to keeps.com/cruciblecoachworks or click the link in the description. That's keeps.com/cruciblecoachworks. Put it like right here, I guess. All right, so we're all jigged in place. We bent the tubing to where it's supposed to be. Now we're gonna go from just a single tack. We're gonna try to weld around our tubing and get it to be a little bit stronger and see if that's enough. If not, we'll add some more bracing with some more tubing. But first things first, let's weld. I am feeling a lot better about this now. I also cranked my amperage up a little bit more. I've been on the lighter side because I've been afraid of blowing the tubing out. But my problem was it was too low and the aluminum would take a while to heat soak, and eventually once it heat soaked it would weld. Now when I strike the arc, I can almost immediately weld it. It's going so much better. This is what we do this though, so we can get better and better and better at things. So keep pushing. Second verse, same as the first. That weld sucks. Don't focus on that weld. So now we should be able to socket it right back where it was. Yeah, this is a whole thing right now.
There we go.
That looks a lot better.
All right.
Now we're talking. So note to self, you guys can keep me accountable. Never rely on just single tacks when it comes to aluminum tubing. Never again. We're going to be doing solid welds here on out. So on our clay model here, in the rear end, we have like this taillight panel right here, and there's a spoiler that's supposed to go across that Tony crushed with his Godzilla fingers earlier by accident. I wanted to jump to the rear end here and do it all in TIG wire like we did in the front of the car so that we can visualize how it's going to go. However, there's a problem with that.
We're going to do it, but first we need to define this shape because it locates and defines this shape here. And
symbiotic relationship.
Exactly. The problem is that this shape is currently wrong in what we've already done in tubing.
Yes, and we discussed that last week and I think actually the week before, because we could not get the tubing to sit between the roll bars. We had made some adjustments. They're really janky, and like little tails that we tacked on up here that just aren't great. So we're gonna cut all that out after we do some more reinforcement, and it'll make more sense here in a couple minutes. First thing I'm gonna do is make the curve piece that runs from here to about here. If I go over to the car, that's from about here to here, and it being straight does not make any sense, so we're gonna make it right. I think we're good. To the next one. Follow the roll bar. About 460 should be good. So because this is incorrect along the shape, we're gonna cut that off. And we're gonna cut off the excess up here we talked about. But before we do that, we wanna make sure nothing moves. So the plan here, take a length of tube, going to wedge it in here. After this tube is in here, we're gonna weld it in place, and then we're gonna be able to cut and move everything around without having to worry about the shape changing. And then this tube can just stay because it's gonna be within the bounds of the skin. We can also set the tubing on our little standoff right here to make sure everything's bueno. Got our support beams welded in, so now I'm just going to move our little standoffs here so they fit this tube, and then we'll cut out the junk we don't need anymore. Oh, I'm going the wrong way. I'm like, why is it getting looser? It's one of those days.
Yeah, I started
it. It's Tony's fault that I say aluminium, by the way. I've never said it in my life, and he's like, you should say aluminium. So I've been saying aluminium.
That is not what happened.
That's exactly what happened.
One morning, I was trying to say aluminum and I couldn't. It just kept stumbling over it. So I just said aluminium.
We understand that there's a debate whether or not it should be aluminum or aluminium. They're both right. So
We embrace the debate.
hop off, all right? I'm gonna say it however I want to say it. What is this?
I knew that
We
was
don't
gonna
use
trigger
Sharpies
him.
in this household. We're ink saws or nothing. These things rule if you can find them. They're Milwaukee ink saws. This is not sponsored, by the way. I love these things. No, 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 no! Hey.
We're about to play my favorite game. Ryan's going to tell me what he's thinking, and I'm going to tell him he's wrong.
Yep, that's typically what happens around here. So if we have this go, you know, just slightly in from the tubing there.
Yep.
Runs down about here.
Did you cut that to length?
That's the tail end that was left over from when I cut the other piece. We go to about here.
Right.
And then we just have to zoop around and do the same on the other side. But I think it's gonna have to float up a little bit.
Well,
though.
here's what I was thinking was if we just run this tubing.
Yep.
Just this piece.
Yep, to here.
Because, right.
Yeah.
And then be done.
Yeah.
And then the rest is wireframe for now, because we're still trying to figure it out.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
In our design, our tubing would run down here, right? And then it sits proud of this deck. It's actually in plane here, but there's like a step down. So we need to decide if the tubing is gonna actually be proud of that deck or it's gonna be down below, and we have the skin do that. And I don't know what the answer is there. I mean, it's easy enough to just do this and be done with it, and then skin over top of it, which I think maybe we should do that. It bends so easy. Bends like butter. That looks good to me. Thanks, Vanna White. 34. What are you thinking?
What's wrong with me?
You have a face that you're making that I don't like.
Yeah. Because we moved them in, the curve on our design leads right up to this point.
Yep.
So I guess, so this is no longer the peak.
Yeah.
Where we have it, because this needs to,
Well, we can change it.
Yep. That's
As long
what I'm
as we
trying
go
to,
around that strut top, we're fine.
Yeah. That's what I'm trying to figure out. That's what I'm looking at.
I think right now we kind of ignore this for a little bit and get everything else to flow the way we want it to go. We know it fits around the strut tower, so.
Okay. I'm fine with ignoring it for now.
I love doing that.
So we're going to build our wireframe out of TIG wire, but we can't attach our TIG wire wireframe to the aluminum tubing. So we're taping this wire to the aluminum tubing, and we can tack to this.
The goal here is to make a wireframe that we can use the template off of for the aluminum tubing, and also to have this fully removable as one solid piece, which is why it's important we have this baseline here to tack to. Tony's like, oh, what's up? Why are you looking at me? And I'm just over here like, I'm just waiting for you to catch up, buddy.
Well, I had to stop so you could weld, because you were complaining about hard mode.
You wouldn't have to stop if you were caught up in the first place. This is why we can't work on the same, actual same piece. Work on the same car, no problem.
Yeah, that's true.
Our babysitter for Chloe, they also watch our channel. Shout out to you guys. Their kids keep using triactin on me when I walk in the door. And it's your fault. It's your fault.
That's great.
The skin's gonna be up like that. So on the car, we have this step down here from the quarter panel to the deck. and it's approximately about 4 millimeters. So this is 1/6 scale times 6, 24 millimeters. So what we're gonna do is,
I did the math for Ryan earlier.
yeah, he did the math for me earlier, so we know it's right. I'm gonna make a little standoff that's 24 millimeters high, weld it right here. We'll flow it down into that, and keep on going. Clamp them in these suckers. So we'll go about 320. I'm not measuring the spoiler anymore. Get out of here!
I'm really just messing with him at this point.
I'm like, see, it takes me like a good 15, 20 minutes to get in the groove, and then he's in here just stomping all over my groove. From the deck edge here to the top of the spoiler is about 15 millimeters. So I'll take that times 6. 15 times
90.
6 is 90. So 90 millimeters straight down from here is that deck edge. It's also slightly forward to that, so, but.
Right there?
Yeah, about 300.
Yeah,
I mean, it
300,
doesn't matter exactly,
300,
wherever looks
yeah,
good.
yeah.
So it's gonna go here, but it's also gonna tail off, because the back of that tails
Right.
off underneath. I just floated this in place when I welded it. It's supposed to be 90 millimeters off the piece. Look at that. It's 88 about. I mean, you can't get much closer than that when you're eyeballing it. I'm a wizard, Harry. Oh, that's perfect already.
We cut out the supports that went from this part of the frame to that part. So now we're going to add in new ones that clear the roll bar. This will also help support the back end of that, because right now it just wants to kind of bounce around, and that's affecting what Ryan's doing. So we're going to get this dialed in and keep moving forward.
Oh, how the turntables.
Yeah, I feel like the taillight panel should be vertical or pretty close to vertical.
Yeah, like that maybe.
Yeah, that
From
looks
this angle,
about
it looks
right.
really aggressive. Just like that. The junction of 4 rods there that I'm tacking to each other using themselves. Like that. You cool with that from your angle?
I think we need to figure out what size our lights are going to be.
I think that we make the panel and then that dictates the size of the lights.
That seems like jumping before you look.
Why?
Because if you can buy a 3.5 inch light, but because we just arbitrarily pick the size of a panel, we want a 4-inch light that we can't find.
We make it.
Then we end up having to make a light.
We have the technology. We can make it.
We have the technology. Do we have the time?
My opinion is we make the body what we want it to be, and then the accessories we buy and or make to fit the body.
I like the buy and or make doesn't make as nearly as much sense.
Taillights can't be that hard to make.
Yeah. Okay. That's what you say about everything, and then when you're
I ain't
done,
afraid of a challenge.
and then when we're done, it's like, man, that took a lot longer than I thought it would.
But then we have bespoke, one-of-a-kind taillights
that are round and they're a 1/4 inch bigger than anybody else's. Who cares? So we ought to at least come up with a range. I'm finding 2-inch, 3-inch, 4-inch. We measured those.
Yeah, on the car here, this comes out to being 2.5 inches once you scale it up times 6. And I don't like tiny little beady taillights. And also, the other thing we need to talk about, which we didn't discuss yet, is do we want round taillights? Do you want square taillights? There's so many factors here that come into building a one-off
Well, we really
car.
need to figure that out before we make the taillight panel, because it's obviously got to work together. So
I kind of like the idea of staggering them, like 4-inch in the inside and 3 on the outside. Because kind of like our taillight panel here, it tapers, like it's thicker here, and it gets thinner to the outside of the car. So if it's 4 inches and 3 inches, I think that'd be kind of cool.
yeah, I like the tapered idea. I'm not sold on it, but I like it. It wasn't arbitrary.
I just like to say arbitrary because it makes me sound smart.
Arbitrary and miscellaneous.
You know, the arbitrary where you like grow trees at.
My lip hurts right now from
the
biting
arbitrarium. Bonus, the dies for our power hammer are 3-inch. So that's one taillight size we need. 3 inches, baby. That's like perfect, that'll work. I'm just riffing over here. I need a higher vantage point to look at this thing. There we go, now we're talking. I think that looks pretty sick. From my vantage point anyway.
Who's ever gonna look at it from that angle unless you're standing on the hill? My initial impression, I feel like the taillights could come down a skosh and out a skosh.
Okay. So what's like the unit of measurement for a skosh? Like an inch?
In this case, it would be an inch. It's all relative. A skosh is definitely relative. Yeah, I mean, I think that's better.
Lay the cardboard out, trace it with some wire. About right here. Is it sharp to bend this on? It's like the table. The table's sharp. Okay. We're good. So there. Straight down to about there. Zoop. Think I need to pull the cardboard off before I tack this? Probably. Will I? This guy walks out of here, comes back with a hot coffee when it's like 90 degrees outside, and a Ziploc bag with a smashed muffin, it looks like.
It's an apple fritter.
You're an apple fritter. That looks pretty good. So in the clay model, this scallop right here is much less prominent.
It's almost not there.
Yeah, Tony wanted to move the tail panel down lower, which I agree with, to make this flow better, which made this get more elongated. We're not sure if you like it or not. So to figure that out, I'm going to run some wiring like so across all these tubes up to the tail panel here so we can visualize it better. And in the meantime, Tony's gonna copy this and paste it on the other side.
Yep. Ryan's letting me bend some wire.
I gave him permission. I think that looks pretty sick. I think that's bussin'. That's what the kids would say about that, right?
You know, you're getting to the age where you're not allowed to say that sort of thing anymore.
What? Bussin'?
What the kids would say. Whatever the kids would say,
I can't say it.
you're pretty much at that age, yeah.
Oh. I don't like that! That tickled so much! So, the rear deck lid here, this is going to swoop underneath a floating spoiler that's integrated to the quarter panels on the sides. That would be seen in our clay model if Tony didn't crush it with his meaty fingers.
If it didn't crumble apart like a dry cookie.
I take offense to that. I put a lot of time into that spoiler. In that same vein though, Tony and I have been talking about like what's too much, what's not enough to fit the 1960s era. But you gotta remember the 60s is a 10-year span, which is a lot in terms of design. In the early
definitely
60s.
the whole design is more towards the late 60s.
Yes.
So, because we've got gotten comments like, well, there's no fender lip in the 60s. Well, in the early 60s, yeah, you're probably right. But by the late 60s, pretty much all the cars had them.
Yeah, they were everywhere. Yep. Same thing for spoilers. Look at the late 60s, like the Plymouth Roadrunner. That thing had a ginormous wing. We're trying to find our way.
Yep.
I think this is a good start.
We want to stay true to it. Yeah.
At the end of the day, we want to make a really, really cool car that we like a lot. And it also needs to be kind of 60s.
Right.
At least 90% 60s would be good.
Yeah, and if there's anything that's not, it's because we had a time machine when we built this in 1969.
Oh, we're just pioneers.
That's it.
We're pioneers.
Yeah. I think we need to spend a little time looking over this potential design change, but no matter what, that change is pretty subtle and this back end looks awesome.
See you guys next week, and thanks for hanging out in the shop with us. I recorded a video of that the same.
Good.